In Ben Jordan's Aphex video, which I made a video about, he shows this clip of someone recreating Vordhosbn on a polyend tracker. Now, the first thing I thought when I saw that was, why would anyone do that? But later on, a couple hours later, I was walking my dog and I kind of realized that it's actually a really good idea. And the reason why is because when I was learning jazz in college, the kind of dominant philosophy of learning, of how to learn to play jazz, was this: you transcribed solos, like I was a guitarist, so Wes Montgomery solos, and if you do that enough, you actually end up not sounding like Wes Montgomery, but it kind of teaches you the language. They would even say, like, get the solo so perfect that it's exactly the same, and you're actually inhibiting the same physical space that Wes was in when he played that solo. Your fingers, everything is the same. You try to like get it as close as possible, and it's like the nuances of the language go into your fingers and whatever. The great Irish guitarist Louis Stewart, he did that. That was how he learned jazz. He just learned Wes Montgomery solos, ended up being Louis Stewart, playing with Benny Goodman, you know, being one of the best guitarists in the world. And there's loads of stories in jazz about how not even people tried to emulate the person before them, but they couldn't, and they ended up different. Like Dizzy Gillespie, the great trumpet player, he looked up to Roy Eldridge and tried to sound like Roy Eldridge, but he couldn't. He ended up sounding nothing like Roy Eldridge. He was Dizzy Gillespie. Miles Davis came up and looked up to Dizzy Gillespie and just couldn't play the speed and everything. He couldn't do it, so he became Miles Davis. Actually, now that I think about it, in those two examples, there's like kind of a discrepancy, because those earlier really important players, they couldn't play exactly the same as the person they were looking up to. Whereas in college, they're kind of, you know, Berkeley's churning out thousands of musicians who are like, can do carbon copy solos of their, I don't know, maybe it's anyway. I had a clear point and now I'm moving it. Let's say, okay, that it is a good idea. For argument's sake, it is a good idea to transcribe solos to learn jazz. I'm not convinced that now anymore. I like talking myself out of it. But if it is, right, then if you transcribe an Aphex track with your equipment and make the sounds and make it sound really close, then you are gaining the skills that are demanded of that, with the sound design, getting the sounds to sound the same, your ears, your chords, your melodies, they all have to be in the right place, your rhythms, and that's a great exercise. And then you have those skills and you can use them for your own music later on if you wish. So it is a good idea to do that. I've never done that, actually. I've done like a few little just sketches, like Finger Bib or Cornish Acid and stuff like that. Like, not to the point where I try and get the whole track to sound the same, just kind of sketch it out. And in the past, like the Bells, techno tracks, whatever, I suppose I was never able to get it to sound anything like that, like, you know, which now I don't feel bad about that, because my earlier examples of all the jazz masters, they couldn't do it either. So I was planning to make this video about how it's a really good idea to do that, but maybe it is for some people. But I can see how it is a good exercise, and yet the really important thing is to learn how to make music that doesn't sound like anyone else. But either way, whether you ignore everything else and just make your own stuff, or you trying to emulate someone else before you develop your own sound. Either way, you're still getting there in the end, developing your own sound. Not everyone in jazz does the transcribe someone, method. There was a great sax player who gave a workshop once that I went to that was, I can't remember his name now. He's one of the great sax players. But anyway, he said that he never transcribed anything in his life, and he didn't want to because he didn't want to sound like anyone else. So, probably Sonny Rollins never did. Or Parker was like into a few players like Lester Young and stuff like that. But anyway, now I've not made such a clear point, but that is all I wanted to say.